according to you, what do you think is some of the great traits of leadership? I think you know that um, a good business and great leaders go hand in hand. I don't think you can separate those two if you're trying to build a business. I think leadership is very, very important. So, what, according to you, what are those traits?
Yes. Well, thanks for having me back, first of all. Yes, they do go hand in hand with business. A good leader is a visionary, for one, usually has a good vision. They are usually a good communicator of that vision. And they have a good leader, in my mind, is somebody who has a good vision and has the ability to influence others to act, if you will, or to action for the greater cause, right? So they have to be a good communicator. They have to be able to influence others, and as well as invest in others, bring others along with them. I think that's a good leader.
Wow. Why do you think of all these things that you just mentioned? Can you talk about that a little bit more? I want to hear your thoughts behind some of the things that you mentioned.
Well, I think a good leader, and especially in business, and I can just use my business as an example. Um, I had a vision for my business, which is the fractional CFO. And my vision grew as I got into it because I started to see more needs that to be met with my clients. And so I thought, well, why don't we take the same concept and apply it to a C-suite, which would address all of the areas in a small business owner. Um, other areas as well, and you can bring in a team with you. And so I took my vision to some previous colleagues of mine and communicated to them my vision, the plan, how it would work, how it would help and benefit so many of these small business owners, and brought them in with me. They're both very excited to work with me on this. I was able to bring them in with my vision. So I have some stakeholders now, other resources, if you will. And I think um, they're able to give me the support that I need to, follow through with my vision as
Yes.
a leader.
Well, thank you for sharing that. Um, what would you say that some of the lessons you have learned by either bad leadership or good leadership in your experience?
Well, I think basically there's a lot of leaders. I have worked for good and bad leaders. And the good leaders to me, like I said, are the ones that are like very, um, they're invested in their followers or their employees, right? And they want to bring them along with them. For all the wins, all the journey. They're very supportive, of their coworkers, teammates, stakeholders. Um, some of the bad ones I've worked for, I think, were more of a leadership to them was more like a dictatorship. It's the I'm in charge thing, and you do what I say, and this is how it's going to be done. There's no collaboration. There's no teamwork, and it's very demoralizing. It's not motivational at all. For the greater effort of the team.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Um, Next question for you, Teresa. Um, and I actually really appreciate you mentioning some of those things, by the way, because um, I have had experiences in my life where um, my energy was channeled in the wrong place by bad leadership. And had it been channeled to the right places, things would have been much more different. But I did not know at that time I wasn't the leader that um, I should have been, and neither was my mentor, my boss, was the leader that they should have been to guide me through all these things. Um, our company values as first class business. are um, patience, persistence, consistency, and reliability, all based on the foundation of love. I'm sure you have some of those things as well when it comes to your businesses that you look up to, that you strive for, and some of the foundations that I think make you as a leader too. Is there something that you want to talk about or mention to our audience?
Like I said, I like to invest in my employees. I like to be a good mentor to them. I like to be a good role model, for them. I like to be I think a huge attribute of a strong leader, somebody that knows how to support others. It's not just not just directing and but supporting them, in their efforts, giving them clear expectations. And I think the biggest compliment to me is I've had previous employees, that have reached out, wanting to come back and work for me again. And I think that's the biggest compliment. I'd like to bring people up with me as I go. So, I believe strongly in, automate, eliminate, and delegate. And the delegate is key. And the only way you can delegate is if you have, strong teammates, working with you, and they're motivated to working with you. And yes, their energy is positive energy. They're excited about what they're doing every day. They're excited about the vision, you know, the bigger story. What are we accomplishing here all together? Um, so I think to me that's always been very important, and it feels good to me to know that I've helped all these others, these other employees and teammates, reach their goals, accomplish their dreams, and I think that's the exciting part of it, to me.
Yeah, that's you mentioned that a great leader needs to know how to support their team. What are some of the things that you do to support your team? Like, what does that look like in your day
Mhm.
to day work?
So what I've done, some of the things that I do is I like to invest in them as far as like training. I had two employees that worked for me, doing a data entry catch up project for a client, and neither one of them had an accounting degree, but I saw talent. I saw talent and skills with them, and I worked with them and put together a training program. We were heavily involved in some Excel spreadsheets at the time, and I offered them an opportunity to go to Excel University, which I did. I loved it. It's Excel for accountants, and they were both very excited about it. They went and did it. They accomplished it, and both very excited. And both of them, even beyond that, decided to go back to school and get the accounting degree. And one of them did get the accounting degree. The other one's still working on it. But that to me that's a good leader. If you can influence others like that, to motivate them to want to accomplish, their dreams and their goals.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Teresa. For my next question, I mean, your brand. I mean, it's very clear. There's a lot of headways you're making, and lives you're probably impacting and changing. But it all started, I'm guessing, at one point, um, way back when. Um, According to you, why do you think that some leaders hide from funding their vision? And how can those leaders then lean into funding that
Hmm.
vision?
I think probably the most obvious is while they have a good vision or a good idea, they don't always have clarity or a well-defined plan for that idea. And so they don't really know how to go about it, and along with that, I think a lot of them are, people may be scared, they're afraid, if you will, they're afraid of failure.
Yeah,
um, there's a lot that goes into it beyond just having a good idea, a hot product or a hot service. There's the business side of things, right?
yeah,
And not everybody understands or knows what all's entailed in the business side. And or if they do, maybe they're afraid of failure. What if I don't, what if I'm not successful? How's that going to look to my peers? Or what am I going to do if I fail? I think the best way to address that in business is to have a backup plan and do some what if scenarios. You know, make sure that, whatever the worst case scenario is, that you've got a plan for it. You can handle it. And I think if you plan it out, then that relieves a lot of that anxiety and that fear. It gives clarity, to your vision, gives you more confidence. I think, and finally, I would say, um, from a financial standpoint, a lot of visionaries don't have the financial resources, or they don't think they do. They may not realize there's various ways of getting funding, for a good idea. Um, there's grants, government money, of course. There's partnerships, crowdfunding, financial lending. There's a variety of ways to get funding, and one of the most important ones is probably, if you can communicate effectively your vision and your plan to outside stakeholders. There's investors out there just looking for great ideas to invest in. So, yeah.
I think you mentioned a very good point. A lot of times we have a very great idea, and but we just don't know how to present it in a way, or
Hmm.
speak about it in a way that would actually help someone or influence someone's decision in investing in us. Um, a lot of times, I think I'm also guilty of that. Um, we like to just blurt out our services or our product out to people, but not to the point of inspiration that they want to invest in. And a lot of times, people don't even have their craft together to answer the question that person might be looking for. Like what would your projection is, like what was your quarterly projection, what is your yearly projection? If you invested this amount of money, how much can you grow it? What are your what who's going to be your CEO?
Hmm.
Who's going to be your CFO? Who's going to be your CTO? Are you Do you have a great team behind you to help you scale that? Do you have infrastructure in place to scale that?
Hmm.
And what about the people that you're hiring? Are those people qualified to do so? Have those people done it what you want to do? Have those people helped others do what you want to do? Where are you going to be going in the next few weeks, months, let alone years? How long do you plan on being the business? Do you plan on selling?
Hmm.
What's my rate of return if I invest in it? These are some of the questions that entrepreneurs, most of them, have no clue when they're looking for investments. And I think it's at the end of the day, for an investor, they're looking at the return they want to have, right? And if you give them a good return, why wouldn't they invest in you again? Like, if someone gave me, like, if I invested $100,000 in someone, right, and then within 18 to 20 months, they're like, "Hey, I'll return 15 to 20%," right? And they did. They paid me before I was able to even, I mean, before the 18-month mark. Why would I not throw down under 100,000 on that
Hmm.
venture as an investor? I would definitely do so. And that's how I think great businesses are made as well. I mean, throughout the history, the business is the last, at least. This is one of the
Hmm.
lessons I learned yesterday. I didn't even realize it. You don't have a scalable business by starving to yourself to death. I mean, um, great CEOs and CEOs and CTOs who are building big businesses while the company might be in negative, right?
Hmm.
And by it takes like maybe 4 or 5 years to get it positive, they're still
Hmm.
taking a healthy salary home to support themselves and not starve to death.
Hmm.
And that's one of the only ways I think I know to have a scalable business. What are your
Hmm.
thoughts on some of that? Do you agree, disagree? Maybe you want to counter with that something?
Oh, I agree with all of that, but all of that goes back to having a good plan.
Yeah.
Everything you described, all those questions that are going to be asked by the investor should be answered in a plan. And that's part of clear communication,
Correct.
of your vision, of your plan. That's how you bring others in, stakeholders in, investors in. And then, of course, beyond that, it's performance based, right?
Mm.
Which is what you're talking about. You present the plan, you get the buy-in, you get the funding, and now all you have to do is perform. Make sure you have your resources, in place, so that you can handle their performance and give those investors, a return on their investment.
Yes.
And that's exactly the exact purpose of what we're trying to do for small business owners.
Yes. Wow. Thank you for sharing that. I want to double down on what you just mentioned there, though. There's You specifically mentioned you need to have people in place,
Yes.
um, who, if you don't know what you're doing, right? Even
Yes.
before you go talk to investors, even before you even approach, maybe promissory notes or grants, like if you bring people in who know what they're talking about, who
Yes.
then know what you need to do, who'll help you build it together, who'll help you um, bring it all together. It's more important. It's You don't want to be putting the cart before the horse. That's not how it works. There's steps towards it. You cannot just show up on an investor's day one day and expect him to just give you funding
No.
without you getting
Yes.
your crap together. And
You have
if
to
you
have
don't,
the Yes, you have to have the plan and you have to have the resources in place. And that
exactly,
resources is basically developing your network. You
yes,
know, who's on your team? Who's on your team that's going to take care of every aspect of your business?
correct,
Because let's face it all, if you think you're going to do it yourself, no investor is going to invest in that.
yes. And I want to add to that. Most business owners are terrible CEOs. The startups, they have no idea how
Yeah.
to be a CEO, but they want to be because of whatever control or whatever limiting beliefs they might have. Uh, but in reality, they have a great vision. Most business owners
Mhm.
are chief visionary officers. Like they're
I think exactly. I think they think because, like I said, they have a great vision, they have a great product or service to
yes,
sell. They're good at what they do, right? So that
yeah,
makes them a great CEO. No, that
yes,
has nothing to do with business.
correct.
There's a business side of things.
Yes, exactly. I mean, they can probably go for the direction of the values and things about a business, or
Mhm.
they can learn how to be a good
You can
CEO.
learn. I always say, get into your business and work in all areas of your business at first. That's fine. Wear all the hats, but you don't have to keep them all on. Find the ones that you're good at, that you enjoy doing, and you can make an impact. And then the others, find somebody else. Bring in the experts in the other areas of that business to handle those other areas, so you can focus on what you're good at and how you're going to drive the business and work on the business.
Thank you for being here today. I'm really happy that you tuned in to Vision Pros Live. I'm looking forward to seeing your reactions as these episodes continue to move forward. This is going to get more and more fun. We'll have more and more engagement as well. We'll invite people to participate in the show. And thank you for giving us your time and attention. Have an excellent time building out your vision and becoming a Vision Pro yourself.